She said it was just a night, but I never knew it would be the last time I'd see her. The street outside was quiet, the glow of the streetlights spilling golden light onto the sidewalk. He approached her apartment with a mixture of anticipation and unease, knowing tonight was different. The air smelled faintly of autumn leaves and distant rain, crisp and charged with emotion. Inside, she sat near the window, her long black hair cascading over her shoulders, the warm lamplight highlighting her graceful figure. 40 years old, confident yet vulnerable, lightly tanned skin, subtle freckles, and dark brown eyes that had always held a depth he couldn't decipher fully. He hesitated in the doorway, aware of the tension in the room. His hands were clammy, yet his gaze was steady, drinking in every detail, the soft curve of her lips, the slight tremor in her hands as she held the teacup, the gentle slope of her shoulders under the cream sweater she wore. She looked calm, but he knew calmness could mask anything: the fear, the regret, the unspoken words he could feel hovering between them. He stepped forward slowly, letting his eyes meet hers. She offered a polite smile, one that didn't quite reach the corners of her eyes, betraying her inner hesitation. The night stretched before them, bright and still, with the golden lamplight reflecting off the hardwood floor. They spoke carefully, the conversation tiptoeing around feelings neither wanted to name. Every gesture mattered, the way she handed him the tea, the slight brush of her fingers against his, the shift of her gaze to avoid his while still taking in his presence. He felt each movement, each pause, each quiet sigh as if it were a confession. He knew she intended this to be just another night, a memory she could tuck away, forget, and move on from. But for him, every glance and touch carved itself into memory. He remembered things she would soon want erased: the warmth of her proximity, the subtle vibration in her laughter, the quiet steadiness of her heartbeat when she leaned close. The tension between them grew, a blend of longing, restraint, and the unspoken knowledge that this night was fleeting. He wanted to reach out, to pull her close, to whisper that he wished time would stop. But he restrained himself, aware that some lines could not be crossed, and that some moments, once lost, cannot be regained. As the evening waned, the realization settled in like a shadow over the bright room. She was slipping away, even as he tried to hold on to her. The space between them felt both intimate and impossible, a fragile bridge that could collapse at any second. Tonight, she was hers only to him in memory, and soon, he would understand that sometimes, one night is all you ever get. The room seemed brighter than it had any right to feel, sunlight spilling through the windows, illuminating every corner of her apartment. He sat across from her at the small kitchen table, his hands wrapped around a warm mug of coffee, feeling the quiet weight of the moment. She looked composed, but he could see the tension in the subtle way her shoulders lifted and relaxed, the way her fingers tapped lightly on the rim of her cup. She wore a soft gray sweater and a flowing skirt that accentuated her curvy figure, long black hair falling effortlessly over her shoulders. Her dark brown eyes met his briefly, then darted away, betraying the conflict she tried so hard to conceal. He noticed the slight smile lines around her eyes, the delicate freckles on her cheeks, and the graceful poise that always seemed natural, even in moments of inner turmoil. Their conversation was careful, circling around trivial topics, yet every sentence carried undertones of something unspoken. A faint brush of her hand as she handed him sugar jolted him, an electric reminder of intimacy that was impossible to ignore. The warmth in her presence and the restraint in her gestures created a tension that neither dared to break. He wanted to reach out, to linger closer, to hold her hand and tell her he remembered everything, but he restrained himself. He understood that tonight was delicate, that one wrong move could shatter what little closeness remained. Instead, he let his gaze linger, hoping she would sense his attention, his quiet longing. Each glance was a conversation of its own, each pause a confession neither could voice aloud. He could feel her inner struggle, the desire to keep the memory of this night at bay, while he wanted to etch it into his mind forever. The bright room, the warmth of the sunlight, the soft aroma of coffee, They all heightened the fragile intimacy between them. By the end of their brief encounter, he sat closer than before, acutely aware of her vulnerability beneath her confident exterior. He understood, more than ever, that some nights are impossible to forget, even if one wishes they could. And he knew, with a sinking certainty, that this was a night that would haunt him long after she had left. She moved to the window, arms resting on the sill, gazing out at the suburban street bathed in golden light. He could see the hesitation in her posture, the way she leaned slightly backward as if guarding herself from the inevitable. Her long black hair shone in the sunlight, dark brown eyes reflecting both warmth and sorrow, lightly tanned skin glowing with subtle freckles. She wore a teal blouse and black pants, her curvy figure poised yet restrained. He remained nearby, careful not to crowd her, yet drawn to the energy she radiated. The room felt charged with unspoken emotion, every gesture amplified by the bright, airy surroundings. Her gaze met his fleetingly, then turned away, a silent acknowledgement of what they both felt but could not articulate. Words were unnecessary, the tension between them spoke volumes. The slight tremor in her hands, the soft exhale as she shifted her weight, even the curve of her lips hinted at a farewell she couldn't yet voice. He wanted to reach out, to stop time, to convince her to stay just a little longer, but he knew it was impossible. The sun poured through the window, illuminating their space in warm, cheerful light, a stark contrast to the heaviness that hung in the air. He realized that this was the moment of parting, the quiet turning point where one night would become a memory he would carry alone. Every glance, every subtle touch, was a reminder that some connections are fleeting, fragile, and irreplaceable. He found himself standing close behind her, sunlight streaming through the bright living room window. Her long black hair fell gracefully across her shoulders as she adjusted her sweater, the movement small but intimate. Lightly tanned skin, curvy figure, dark brown eyes, everything about her presence was vivid, poignant, and unforgettable. His fingers hovered, hesitating, before lightly brushing a strand of hair from her face. She didn't recoil. Instead, she exhaled softly, a subtle acknowledgement of the closeness they shared, yet there remained a clear boundary she would not cross. The moment felt suspended, delicate, and charged, illuminated by the cheerful glow of the bright room. The simple intimacy of the gesture, the brush of his hand, the tilt of her head, the warmth in her eyes, conveyed everything they could not say. He knew that tonight was slipping away, that he would remember this gentle touch long after she had gone. They walked side by side in a suburban park, bright sunlight casting long shadows along the path. Every casual brush of arms, every shared glance, felt electric and unspoken. She wore a soft green cardigan and jeans, her long black hair swaying slightly in the gentle breeze. Her dark brown eyes flicked toward him occasionally, subtle tension in her gaze, curvy figure relaxed yet alert. They spoke softly, laughed lightly, and occasionally fell into silence. The warm sunlight and cheerful environment created a stark contrast to the heaviness of what lingered between them. Every step together felt like a negotiation between longing and restraint, the inevitability of goodbye pressing closer with each stride. Sitting on a park bench, he stayed close but respectful. Her long black hair gleamed in the sunlight, soft freckles across lightly tanned skin, curvy figure relaxed in the bright surroundings. Lavender sweater and black pants made her presence feel warm yet unreachable. He brushed a stray hair from her face, a small gesture, intimate and final. Dark brown eyes met his for a fleeting moment, a silent acknowledgement of everything unspoken. The sunlight emphasized the fragility and warmth of their connection. Knowing this would likely be the last shared closeness of its kind, back in her bright living room, she gathered her belongings, wearing a soft pink cardigan and jeans, long black hair falling naturally. Curvy figure poised. Dark brown eyes avoided his gaze, subtly tanned skin glowing in the afternoon sunlight. They exchanged few words. The silence said more. Hands almost touched on the coffee table, the smallest gap between them feeling immense. He realized then, fully, that she was leaving and some nights, some people, cannot be reclaimed. The bright, cheerful room only highlighted the ache of loss, the unspoken sorrow of a goodbye he could not prevent. The evening ended with quiet resolution, the finality of her departure echoing in the warmth of the sunlight, leaving him with memory, longing, and the ache of what was lost forever.